Here. So good morning. Unfortunately at 7:24 a.m. I received notice that Congresswoman Strickland was not able to make it. I believe she will be at our June GAC. We have plenty going on in our community with the end of session, some kind of crazy policies that are trying to make their way up, through the county as well. And then, of course, we have our friend Chris Eyler from the U.S. Chamber here today. So always plenty to update on. And then I see, and obviously city and state reps are on too. So we'll get to everyone. Hey, I see Sean Egan logging on from Port of Tacoma. So we're gonna, on the fly, make this a great GAC. So first of all, good morning, Chris. Thank you so much for being here. I will go ahead and just kick it to you and let us know what's going on in DC.
Okay, well, thank you, Tara. I had planned to go after Congressman Strickland and just simply supplement anything she had to say, but that being said, I'm happy to be the featured DC speaker today. First of all, I just want to note that I have a new hire in the Northwest Region office. Her name's Shavner Winters. She is joining us today. In the future, you may be getting updates from her as we try to cover more ground across the region. But that being said, today you're gonna have to hear from me. Just first and foremost, I want to just do a quick update on the latest with respect to pandemic programs that Congress has passed. Since we last met, Congress has passed the American Rescue Plan. I think at this point, you're pretty well familiar with a lot of the broad contours of that plan. So I just want to highlight a few specific things that were included that impact the business community. First, the employee retention tax credit. If you recall, this is a refundable tax credit for businesses with 500 or fewer employees who have experienced a 20% or greater drop in gross revenue in a calendar quarter compared to that same calendar quarter in 2019. Under the original CARES Act, this was an annual tax credit. Congress in December expanded it to a quarterly tax credit just for the first and second quarters of 2021. In the American Rescue Plan, they extended it to the end of the year, so it is now a quarterly tax credit for all 4 quarters of 2021. That means that a business, an eligible business, can claim up to $7,000 per employee tax credit per quarter in 2021. That's a potential $28,000 tax credit. Next, the American Rescue Plan created the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. This is a grant to help businesses recoup their pandemic-related losses. That grant launched yesterday. They are now accepting applications for grants. However, they are prioritizing, for the first 21 days, they're prioritizing women-owned and minority-owned businesses. There is over $26 billion in the fund. So even though they are prioritizing certain businesses first, there's every expectation that there will be plenty of funding in there when they open it up to all businesses. But that being said, the program, the grants will last until that funding is exhausted. On the Paycheck Protection Program, this was done separately from the American Rescue Plan, but Congress did extend the Paycheck Protection Program until the end of May. So businesses that have yet to apply for a Paycheck Protection Program or are eligible for a second draw, they have until the end of May to apply for one of those loans. And then lastly, I sent this around to Tara and all her colleagues at the local chambers in the state. The president 2 weeks ago announced a new tax credit for small businesses to reimburse those businesses for providing their employees paid time off to go get vaccinated. Basically, the business just has to give the employee the time off, and then whatever it costs them to give them that time off, they can withhold that amount when they go to pay their payroll taxes to the government. We've put together a webinar explaining the broad parameters of the tax credit. I've encouraged Tara and all of her colleagues at all the local chambers in the state to share that with their members. You can also find it on our website under uschamber.com/coronavirus. Again, it's a tax credit to reimburse small businesses for providing their employees time off to go get vaccinated. At this point, we do not expect any kind of additional large-scale relief packages on the scale of the CARES Act or the American Rescue Plan moving forward. Given the direction things are going with vaccinations and reopenings, it just doesn't seem like Congress is going to need to do anything on that scale again. It remains an open question whether they will provide additional funding as some of the funding for these grant programs and the PPP run out. I think right now, our best guess is that they aren't going to provide any additional extensions or additional funding for these programs, barring some turn for the worse with the pandemic. So for that, given all of that, they are starting to turn their attention to other things. The main thing that they have turned their attention to is transportation and infrastructure. This is a good thing. This has been a long time priority for the U.S. Chamber. I don't think I need to go into the reasons why, but just generally our infrastructure is crumbling. It's been graded at a C- by the American Society of Civil Engineers. It's long overdue for significant investment. Fortunately, the president agrees. He put forward his American Jobs Plan. There's a lot in the American Jobs Plan that we like. It focuses a great deal on a lot of the things we consider to be needing investment: roads, bridges, highways, airports, seaports, water, sewer, like the electrical grid, rural broadband. It also includes a lot of investments in the workforce that we need to build the infrastructure. It does take some steps to implement some regulatory reform and permit streamlining so that a lot of these projects can get approved and get started more quickly. But we are very, very concerned about the president's reliance on a general increase in taxes, specifically the increase in the corporate tax rate from 21% to 28%. I think the thing to keep in mind here is that, while they talk a lot about big corporations paying this, it falls on small businesses as well. By our calculations, there's approximately 1.3 million small businesses that organize as C corporations that would be hit by this tax increase. These small businesses employ over 12 million Americans. Furthermore, we feel that at this point, as we are coming out of the downturn due to the pandemic, this is not the time to be raising taxes. It would make it could potentially negatively impact our ability to come out of the recession. Furthermore, it would raise our overall tax rate for businesses to one of the highest in the industrialized world, and make us less competitively internationally. So we are encouraged that the president is moving in our direction on what he's going to invest in, but we have a lot of concerns about how he wants to pay for it. We have put forward over the years a number of proposals, specifically when it comes to using user fees to pay for infrastructure, things like raising the federal gas tax or looking at other alternatives such as vehicle miles traveled, as well as expanding public-private partnerships. There is a lot of angst in DC over this right now. If you're listening to the news, there are a lot of people in Democratic leadership pushing the president to do this on a party line vote and use what's called budget reconciliation. However, at this point, not all Democrats are on board with that, specifically Senators Manchin and Sinema. They have indicated that they would like to see the president try to find a bipartisan solution and a bipartisan path forward on this. That is our preference, and we are encouraged that Republicans are willing to come to the table. They put forward their alternative proposal, a $568 billion proposal that focuses really just on basic infrastructure. And then another group of bipartisan members of Congress, the so-called Problem Solvers Caucus. This is a group of 54 House members split evenly between Democrats and Republicans. They have put forward an alternative counterproposal. And one of the things that should be noted about their counterproposal is that it relies more on those user fees to help fund a lot of these investments. So at this point, we see this is the beginning of a very, very long process. Each side is in the process of kind of staking out their negotiating position. The president so far has been very open to speaking with Republicans. He is engaging all stakeholders. The things that he is saying publicly, he is saying to us in private as well. So we're very encouraged that he is being very open to finding a bipartisan path forward. As to why we are so insistent on this being a bipartisan solution, we feel that that will create a much more durable policy. Should control of Congress change, or should control of the White House change in 4 years, we don't want to be in a situation where the new president or the new Congress immediately turns around and tries to undo everything that the previous administration, the previous Congress did. If they are able to come to a bipartisan consensus, it is more likely that whatever is passed this Congress will survive subsequent Congresses and administrations, because particularly with infrastructure, these are long-term investments. We need to have long-term certainty as they pass this type of legislation. Otherwise, that really is my update. Infrastructure is going to be the main event for the next couple months. And particularly over the next month, there's going to be a lot of discussions going on in DC about finding this path forward. As far as how this starts to move forward, it is very possible that Speaker Pelosi will try to move something prior to the 4th of July, but really whatever comes out of Congress is going to be determined in the Senate. And our best guess is that look to the fall for some type of final package to finally come together. So with that, I don't want to take up any more of your time, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions from the group? I know we were happy to see Congresswoman Strickland's committee assignments.
Yes.
In transportation and military affairs. Is that?
Yes, and just to that point, I just want to stress too that the Washington congressional delegation is going to play a very, very pivotal role in these discussions. As Tara noted, Congresswoman Strickland is on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, which is going to have be the center of much of this discussion, as is Senator Cantwell, who chairs the Senate Commerce and Transportation Committee. And then, of course, Senator Murray is a senior appropriator, and she will have a hand in anything that goes through Congress, particularly given that she's also a member of Democratic leadership. But beyond that, also Congressman Kilmer will play a very significant role as a member of the House New Democrats, and a noted bipartisan deal maker. He will certainly play a very key role in these negotiations as well.
Is Adam Smith on Transportation and Infrastructure as well?
No, Adam Smith chairs the House Armed Services Committee. So there very well may be some aspects of this that go through that committee, but most of it is going to go through Transportation and Infrastructure, and then on the Senate side, House. It's kind of split between a number of committees on the Senate side: Senate Commerce, Senate Environment and Public Works. But there's also going to be a revenue piece here, where if there's any kind of tax increases, or even if there's an increase in the federal gas tax, for instance, that's going to have to go through the House Ways and Means Committee, which Congresswoman Del Benny is a member of, and then through the Senate Finance Committee, which Senator Cantwell is also a senior member of.
Well, hey, you did a great job pinch hitting there for her. Nice job. Always appreciate you being here.
My pleasure.
Hey, I love this group. Again, with word that Congresswoman Strickland was not able to make it, I made some quick phone calls, and our lobbyist, Carolyn Logue, is on the call and has just a few moments to give us some updates. We're at the close of the session, so there's some, I guess, roundup conversations to hear a little bit of how we ended up. And I don't know that it's all good news, so I'll leave it at that. Carolyn, thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here. And I apologize, everyone. This is going to be totally off the cuff because I'm in my car and I don't have any notes in front of me. So the Washington State Legislative Session adjourned on Sunday, April 25th. It was a weird session, I guess, as we all know, because it was completely virtual. Lots of concerns about transparency and how this is going to work. I would say, in my opinion, for the most part, it worked okay. I think there was some issues with the numbers of people. You know, the nice thing is a lot of people got to participate in the remote legislative sessions and in hearings, and that's fantastic. The downside is that often resulted in so many people wanting to testify that everyone got about 90 seconds to speak. And considering the level of policy being discussed this year in a year that we were originally told was going to be fairly quiet and mostly budget oriented, not having only 90 seconds to speak was really difficult for a lot of people, especially with the big issues going on that were related to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm going to kind of run through a few things real quick, kind of the good, bad, and the ugly. So first of all, for the South Sound region, we work with the South Sound Chamber of Commerce Legislative Coalition. We were really grateful that for the most part, the current law transportation budget that passed preserved most of, I think there's still a shortfall, but that shortfall isn't going to be seen for a couple of years on the 167-509 project. And we all worked together, our old 509-167 Gateway Coalition worked together to pull back in things, the full spews at 161 and some of the other changes that were thrown in afterwards, in addition to keeping the projects pretty much, we had some acceleration a couple years ago, keeping that acceleration going and trying to make sure, because our goal, first of all, is to make sure that we don't lose momentum on that 509-167 transfer that gateway project, because we waited 50 years for all this, and we're going to make sure that does not get put on the back burner at all. So really, although it wasn't awesome, there was a lot of transportation revenue loss thanks to the COVID pandemic and kind of what we've seen in terms of gas tax revenues anyway, dwindling. We were able to keep that mostly intact, keep it going, and make sure that there weren't any significant delays in the projects. So I would say that was a major victory. The other thing is that we worked with Representative Deborah Entenman on trying to make sure that manufacturing distributing centers, which include Frederickson and other places, but around the South Sound region, Kent, Auburn, that those regions that were hurt by streamlined sales tax, we moved our sourcing of where the tax goes, because they're always going to be manufacturing and distribution centers. And we want to make sure from an economic development perspective, they can keep that going, that there's some assistance for the lack of retail sales tax that they're able to collect in those communities. So those were a couple of the big victories. General business wise, we had a couple of big victories. One is we were able to obtain not only a reduction in the social tax rates and unemployment insurance, but also at the end, the legislature put $500 million more into helping reduce the experience rates that some businesses are going to see next year in their unemployment insurance rates. It's going to be spread in 4 tiers. And there's some NAICS codes. And so, of course, restaurants and the really hard hit industries are going to be given priority, and small businesses will be given priority. So that's good. We also were able to get some tax relief in that any PPP or PUA funds or anything like that that you collected as COVID relief will not be applied to your gross receipts for state tax purposes. And also, and I cannot remember the number of the bill, but there's going to be a 25% reduction for hard hit businesses in their property tax. So those are big. I think those were pretty good wins. Kind of that was the good. The bad, we saw several labor bills pass. I'm not putting them in the ugly because we were able to mitigate impacts of quite a few of them. One being one on workers' protection and safety and health, orders of immediate restraint. We were able to give employers more time to respond, which will give you more time to make sure you can appeal your case. In Senate Bill or House Bill, it was Senate Bill 5115, which was called the HELSA bill, the Health Employment Labor Standards Act. We were able to take away the requirement. It provides a rebuttable presumption that an airborne disease that's the subject of a pandemic is a work-related. So your employee gets, let's say, COVID during the COVID pandemic emergency, that would automatically be considered a workers' comp claim, and you would have to rebut that. It is a huge problem because we know that employees are not necessarily always getting this disease at work, but we gave some better standards for being able to rebut that. and then also took away any requirement that you pay attorney's fees in any appeal. So we were able to mitigate that. Kind of the bad one on a labor, although we stopped the key TAM bill, which was the bill that would have allowed anyone to just come in and sue businesses basically on behalf of the state for purported violations. We were unable to stop a bill that allows your employees, if they feel they owe you wages, instead of going to the Department of Labor and Industries or filing a complaint in court, they could now do those things, but also file a pre-judgment lien against your business for the wages they believe they are owed. That is a huge concern for businesses, and we're going to be working on that one over time. Kind of the ugly, and I don't know if it'll be ugly in the end, they're big, huge policies. That this was the problem with the remote session. These were huge policies that required a lot more face-to-face discussion with stakeholders than what happened. One we know for sure, the climate change, 5126. Huge policy, went through a lot of changes, but amazingly passed at the last minute, mostly partisan votes going through. That is a huge cap. They call it cap and invest, cap and trade, cap and tax, depending on your political bent. And what that will do is basically Department of Ecology will set limits on emissions for greenhouse gas emissions, and then create these allowances that large emitters will have to buy in order to do their work. And then you move on, and so there's money that comes into the state, and it is then put back into various programs to further reduce greenhouse gas emissions, do electrification projects, provide allowances to consumers who are seeing cost increases through their electrical or natural gas rates, et cetera. It doesn't ban natural gas, but there's going to be incentive on trying to reduce the use of natural gas. So that is a big, huge, it's going to take a couple of years to get this going. It's going to take some time there. And then they also passed the low carbon fuel standard. Once again, that's going to have significant impact on the cost of transportation fuel from what we've seen happening down in California. We're going to have to take a look at that as it moves forward. Both are tied to a new additive transportation package that did not pass. So we're waiting now to see what the governor does with those ties, if he's able to excise that at all. He's not supportive of that tie-in. That is also the one thing that has been discussed that could bring the legislature back into special session, is doing a new additive transportation package, which would of course require gas tax revenues. In 5126, there's $5 billion for transportation for this new package going forward. So that's out there. Governor hasn't signed them yet. I would expect he will. And then the last thing is they passed their budgets. The capital budget passed, lots of good projects in there. I mean, the problem was they had a lot of money to spend. We had about $3 billion in extra in revenue. We are getting, I think around $8 billion from the federal government for various COVID relief. And so what we saw is about a almost $60 billion budget pass for the 21-23 biennium, about $4 billion more going into K-12 education. I think that brings them up to almost $30 billion for K-12 education. Significant increases in public health spending and spending on housing and homeless projects, early learning and childcare. And then tied to the early learning and childcare spending is they did pass 5096, which was a 7% capital gains tax on gains over 250,000. There are some qualified business deductions. You are exempt if you're a qualified family-owned business meeting certain criteria, if you gross less than $10 million in the year before the sale. But for a lot of closely held retail businesses, 10 million is not a lot. And of course, this is now being challenged in court because the argument over whether capital gains is income or excise tax. Just because you say it's something doesn't mean it is. And the courts will be deciding that and to see whether or not the legislature violated our constitutional prohibition against an income tax, or if they even uphold that 1933 ruling that was the constitutional prohibition against an income tax without a vote of the people. So that's pretty much all I can think of right now. So I'll take questions.
Wow, on the fly and in a pinch. That was awesome. So yes, questions from anyone. Councilmember Morrell, you have your hand up.
Thank you, but I did want to ask Chris a couple of questions. So, but I don't want to take away from Ms. Lowe's time. So if Chris is still there, at some point, I'd like to ask him a question. So is he still on the call?
He is. I'd say go ahead and ask your
Yeah,
question.
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Hey, you know, the counties and cities have all been given or will be given at some future date the American Rescue Funds. With CARES Act, we were able to, as a county, to enact a lot of business programs with a considerable amount of our CARES Act money to make sure that our businesses got grants as expedient as possible. Our challenge moving forward with the American Rescue is it's a 3 to 4 year spend down program, and the county has already spent a portion of those funds for business grants. Our concern is how quickly is the SBA and the federal, I would assume, both the restaurant plan and the business loan, how quickly can they push those out? And how challenging is it going to be for businesses to fill out those applications and get commitments back in a timely manner? So that way the counties and the cities don't continue to push out grants on top of everything else.
Well, presumably they're going to push it out pretty quickly. Like I said, they just started accepting the applications for the restaurant grant yesterday. So far, we haven't heard of any major problems with the application portal. Though how quickly that money hits bank accounts, we're just gonna have to wait and see. But hopefully, it is quick. It's pretty quick. On the other grant program, the Shuttered Venue Operator Grant Program, they did encounter some problems with that application portal, and they are just now getting that up and running. So I think it's, we're just going to have to wait and see how quickly they can get that money pushed out the door. Given the amount of demand, that money is probably going to get bled down pretty quickly for both grant programs. If the experience we saw last year with the Paycheck Protection Program is any kind of guide to how fast that money is going to go. So, the best I can tell you is that we're just going to have to wait and see. But I think, just talking to my colleagues in DC who deal directly with the SBA, they expect that money to go pretty quickly.
Okay. I guess my concern would be if you could talk to your colleagues, especially about states that are still getting rollbacks in phases. A lot of states are opening up.
Yeah.
Businesses are able to do what they do best, but in Washington, we're still dealing with rollbacks. So I'm quite sure there'll be an announcement today rolling back some of the counties again. And, folks that are in local government, we're very concerned about getting money to our businesses in a timely fashion when they need it. So anyway, I would just encourage you to convey that they may look at certain states that are still under pretty strict emergency orders to get that funding out.
Yeah, and I assure you, I am reminding them pretty regularly that we are still much more restricted than most of the country. So.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, Chris. Thanks for the work you do.
Thank both of you. So I'll just stay at the state level before we move to county. And again, any other questions for Carolyn? That was quite an update. All right, well, how about if we have Representative Chambers add on to your experience this year?
Hi, good morning. Carolyn Logue did a pretty good job, and I think she did it all without taking a breath. So don't know if I could do that this morning. Yeah, we saw the capital gains tax pass, and know that the lawsuits are already filed on that. So that's going to play out in the courts. And, some people asking, is this something that would go to the Supreme Court? It would go to the state Supreme Court, but not beyond that. So there's some case history there and precedent as to, whether capital gains are income, and, that question remains to be decided now by the courts. So I think everyone's sort of on pins and needles about that, but maybe some smaller bills that passed that were good. Representative McEwen had a bill extending privileges to liquor licenses. So like we've seen cocktails to go, that's something that has been extended for a couple of years. That was really helping our restaurant and hospitality businesses stay afloat with the current COVID restrictions. And let's see, there was a nice bill by Representative Urquhart, regarding property tax exemptions for veterans and service-connected disabled veterans. That they may have an income that disqualified them from the property tax exemption, but when this bill allowed them to factor in the costs of care. So let's say somebody's receiving home care and there's a large out-of-pocket expense for that offsets their net income. So allowing those veterans to still take advantage of that property tax exemption. We were able to pass, in the transportation arena, making road maintenance and preservation a priority. And that's something that, we've been, pushing for the last couple of years, because we want to ensure that we're, maintaining the state, infrastructure that, costs so much to build. But on the flip side of that, there were some development type bills that died. So when we look at the GMA, the Growth Management Act, the more restrictions and requirements you add to that, the longer it takes to get projects permitted, slows down development. And we already know that we have like a housing crisis. So, and we're just short units. So when you add additional layers of regulation onto development, it takes longer to get that stuff done, and then drives up the price. So there was a bill to add salmon recovery and net ecological gain to the Growth Management Act. That bill died. But one thing to keep in mind, this being a long session, bills that were introduced this year are automatically alive again next year. So while we have the Keytown was a major bill that the business community, the small business community opposed, don't be surprised if we have to continue to fight that next year and really be involved in that discussion. And hopefully we'll be back in person next year so that we can have those in-person meetings on such a major piece of legislation. Let's see, what else? I was going to point out there was a bill that I really wanted to make sure, especially small businesses, knew about. It's 1033. It's an extension of a bill that was created, that it was supposed to attract businesses to Washington by giving those employers a B&O tax credit for sending employees to the community and technical colleges for training. What we found was that more already existing businesses in Washington were taking advantage of that. So this got extended, and it's not just, I asked these questions, but it wasn't just sending your employees to community and technical colleges, but I look at my business, because our employees are required to get a certificate and a license, that employers paying for that training as well for the employees would qualify for the B&O tax credit. So I just put that out there for small businesses, that if you are sending employees to any kind of training, whether it be, English as a second language or certificate programs, that to try to take advantage of that B&O tax credit. One of the big issues that was sort of dealt with late was the Blake decision. And this is the Supreme Court decision that, essentially legalized drug possession. It was a choice between two bad things in the end. Either we passed this bill that was wholly insufficient, or it was going to be the Wild West when it comes to law enforcement's ability to prosecute drug possession. So the thing that got passed makes it a misdemeanor, and then that expires in 2 years. So this conversation is going to continue about how we want to deal with that in Washington. And there's a time frame on it. So we have to come up with really new statewide policy. Otherwise, we are going to have essentially no prosecution, like you're seeing in the city of Seattle become the law of the land across the state. And I was really disappointed. I'm on the appropriations committee, and in appropriations, I added a $5 million proviso that would spend an additional $5 million on prevention and proven prevention tactics and then that ended up getting stripped out in the final budget. So there was a lot of talk about how important we think prevention is, but in the end, the money didn't stick. And so the state already does spend some money on prevention, but I really think in this era where you have a major policy shift, that at the same time, when we're looking at additional recovery services for drug addiction, that we also look at the prevention side as well, because that saves us from having to then pay for treatment for folks who are then addicted. And then one little, personal plug. I was Representative Gina Mossberger asked me to run a couple of budget provisos for her in appropriations, and so I did, and this one was actually accepted, which was like a huge win. And it was an additional $2 million. It got stripped down to 1.3 million, but it's for the Washington State Patrol to purchase additional mobile DNA crime processing labs. And so this is huge. The State Patrol has had a backlog of processing sexual assault kits and has received additional funding over the last few years for that. But these mobile DNA labs will allow law enforcement to, like if they discover human remains or they're processing a crime scene, to develop a DNA profile, which will rule suspects in or out within 90 minutes. And those will be located throughout the state. I think it's going to be Vancouver, Puget Sound, and then one in Eastern Washington. And, I just shared, my personal experience with this. My best friend growing up, we've been friends since the 3rd grade. She was at my wedding. I was at her wedding, yada, yada. The year that we graduated from high school, her mom disappeared. And in 27 years, they've never found her mom. And as a result, my friend ended up, there were 3 girls. They all had to go with their different fathers and grow up without a mom. And it kind of boggles my mind sometimes to think about how science has progressed in the last 25 years, and that we even have the capability to do what we can do with DNA. So I was really thrilled that this got picked up in appropriations. And then I was holding my breath the entire time to make sure it stayed in until the final budget was passed. And then I got a text message from Dave Reichert saying, "Thank you so much for working on this." And I was like, kind of a fangirl moment of, and there's not a lot of that in politics, but I was pretty excited. So anyways, that was one, I think, huge win that I think will make a difference for a lot of people in the state.
Congratulations on your winery workforce bill as well. A workforce development.
Yeah, I was holding my breath until the governor signed that one too.
Right on. All right, Representative, do we have Jacobson? Your first year. It was a different year. Anything to add to that?
It was a bit different. Sitting here at my dining room table, like I did the whole session again, it feels weird to have done that the whole time from my dining room. Not a lot to add. One of the bills that basically establishes just cause evictions. And so it wasn't my favorite bill, but on one of the bills, we got an amendment in to end the eviction moratorium on June 30th. A lot of good things happen in appropriations. I'm on there with Kelly as well. So, so we'll wait and see how that plays out, and if that gets vetoed, or if he can parse that out and get rid of it, or if the eviction moratorium might finally come to an end. We'll see. Stay tuned. The big picture that struck me is we were going to have 4.3 billion in natural revenue growth. We were back to pre-COVID levels. It was going to be fine. And what we ended up doing is we passed the cap gains tax, which is a little more, I won't say innocuous than it could be, but it's not as bad as it could be, because it's up to, the limit is 250,000. It doesn't apply to retirement or real estate, but we have to remember that Governor Inslee's budget had a capital gains tax that applied 25,000 and up to a lot more categories. So I'm just kind of waiting and seeing on that, if that is challenged in the courts, and if next session we're asked to add more things. So we had good revenue growth, and we added a cap gains tax. We added a $100 document recording fee, which is already high. We added some, various small taxes just here and there. So there was no reason to do that, and our budget could have been whole without that. So that was the big thing that struck me. And we did not limit the governor's emergency powers. So that was another big thing that struck me. One nice thing on the cap and trade and the low carbon fuel standard, which aren't going to have a big benefit environmentally, is that they're not going to go into effect unless we break ranks as the Republicans and vote for their 5 cents a gallon tax on transportation. And transportation, unlike the operating budget, is a little lower funded. So anyway, I'm hoping that we do not break ranks, and that they're, even if a special session is called, that we just hold firm on that, so that we don't have those two policies that would really harm people in the cost of gas and harm our ability to transport goods. So I'm hoping we hold firm on that. So not a lot more to add. I feel like it's great to work in good company and work with great people that brief things pretty well. So.
Great. Well, we love having our mathematician out there keeping tabs on the numbers. All right, so let's move to county. I just have to say, what the heck is going on with the hazard pay ordinance? Councilman Morel, Zeiger, anxious to hear from both of you.
Go ahead, Dave. Dave, I think you're on mute there if you're trying to talk.
Yes, I was trying to talk. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate that correction, Council Member Zeiger. Yeah, we have an ordinance coming forward that's been fast-tracked by the majority, ordinance number 2021-30. And it's more of the migration from Seattle, King County on hazard pay requirements for grocery employees working in Pierce County. And though, first of all, I have great respect for grocery workers and any essential worker that has had to work through the ups and downs and unknowns of this past year. But I think what we need to understand is we can't, be selective on who we think is worthy of getting hazard pay or not. So this is unusual because the majority has decided that they want to one-up King County, and they want to make this under the emergency order mandated to not only unincorporated Pierce County, but they want to mandate it to all cities within Pierce County. And this is the first time that this approach has been used. There again, under Governor Inslee's Healthy Washington recovery plan, that the majority has decided that they now have powers to be able to basically dictate anything within the boundaries of Pierce County. And so they've decided to go for the touchdown on this and figure out how they can mandate to all cities, and that would be everyone from Tacoma to Bonnie Lake to Fife to Puyallup, on adding $4 an hour hazard pay to grocery workers. And this has kind of been the other interesting aspect of this, and it's pretty much following the same language as King County on it. But this affects all the Safeways, Fred Meyer's, Target, Costco, Walmart's, Rite Aids, Walgreens, grocery outlets, etc. Anyone who has a facility of 10,000 square feet and has one employee designated to retail grocery sales. So this is far-reaching, and we just do not feel, being a business owner for the past 40 years, that this is a direction that Pierce County needs to go. The resolution or the ordinance will be before the council today. If you have any concerns about free market and the ability for government to dictate how we set wages for employers and employees, then here's your opportunity to weigh in on this. But there again, I just think it's the wrong direction for Pierce County. For years within our economic development department, we've tried to separate ourselves from Seattle and King County, that we are business friendly in Pierce County. And this just sets us back considerably in the way we approach trying to get businesses to locate down in Pierce County. So with that, Hans, I'll let you fill in the details.
Well, thanks, Dave. Yeah, I think this is really problematic policy, and I'm hoping that we get a strong showing from the business community at the hearing today. We've been hearing from grocery workers since January who've been asking for hazard pay ordinance, and they presented very strong arguments for why hazard pay is warranted during this time. The challenge is that we're talking about, for the majority of these grocery stores, collectively bargained contracts. And I see no reason why the government at any level should get in between that collective bargaining relationship. In addition, if this is going to apply county-wide in the cities, to me, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen from the cities. We have heard from cities already who have expressed the legal challenge that they see with that, and the precedent that they see would be set if the county were to intervene within incorporated cities. And we've heard from Bonnie Lake, we've heard from Sumner, we've heard from Lakewood. I would encourage those of you on the Puyallup City Council who are on this call to weigh in as well if you're able. I just think that we'd be going down a troublesome road. I mean, what comes next if the county feels that it has the power to make public policy within incorporated cities? So, and there are real arguments about equity that come into play when you talk about, saying we're going to choose one particular industry, however you define it, whether how much retail you're going to include, how much kind of traditional grocery, large stores, small stores, whatever. there's going to inevitably be equity issues because we're choosing one set of essential workers. What about long-term care workers? What about other healthcare workers who've been impacted by this? What about firefighters and you know, I mean, we could go down a long list of folks who've been impacted by the circumstances of the pandemic, and now, and as Mayor Pugh pointed out in the letter to the council yesterday, you know, we've seen the flaws, the problems of picking and choosing winners throughout the course of the last year, and if the council moves forward with this policy, we're going to be doing that again, and so, you know, hoping we have a strong showing from the business community at the hearing this afternoon to talk about the challenges with this, as well as our cities to talk about the challenges that they see. I expect that the executive will veto this, and would not be surprised if there is an effort to override that veto on the council. So we'll need backing from folks out in the community making the argument for why this is bad policy. So that's a summary of that, and I can take any questions on that. I wanted to highlight very quickly the action that we took last week on the first iteration of American Rescue Plan funds. We are getting $88 million this year, $88 million next year at the county, and that's in addition to all the money the cities are getting. Puyallup, for instance, is getting $9.2 million over the 2 years. And then there's a number of other pots of money that are coming in for business assistance, for homelessness and housing, for behavioral health, a lot of different funds coming in. Rental assistance is a big one. Just some highlights of what we passed last week: $8 million for business assistance that will fully cover the demand that was there for the phase 2 rollback funding that we provided from the county, $10,000 per business. We also set aside $5 million for entrepreneurship and technical assistance. And I see Betty Capistani is on here, and she can describe the kinds of work that would be done through that. But that will have a focus on communities of color and making sure that we are addressing some of the equity issues in providing entrepreneurship and technical assistance opportunities in our county. And then about $250,000 set aside for farmers markets. So I think that's one of particular interest for our community. But we're going to be looking for continued input as we set aside other funds going forward for other ARP funds. And so any input that folks on this call have, please send that to Dave and to me. Thank you.
So 3 p.m. today is the hearing.
3 p.m. today, and if you want, and I'll drop the link to the meeting in the chat box here, but if you need that separately, then you can just go to the county council website and it's right on the front of there.
Great. Well, we would love to hear from Betty Capistani to add anything, and then also speak to us about the executive's Pierce County Task Force for vaccines.
And I do see Kelly Chambers has a question as well.
Hey, Hans, I just wanted to see what's the best way for people to weigh in on the this hazard pay ordinance.
You can either testify at the hearing at 3, or you can send emails to council members. And if you send an email directly to all 7 of us, then that's a good way to get the message to us.
Okay. Thank you. Betty, good morning.
Good morning. So I think I'd rather talk to you about the last topic of American Rescue Plans, but I do appreciate all of your business support to help our council stay very business focused. I know one thing that Pierce County has really set us apart, that we all work together, the county and our cities, especially to get jobs and keep jobs. So I want to make sure we're able to keep that focus. So along that line, on the entrepreneurship and training, one of the caveats that council put together in the package is we actually have to come back with a proposal, and that proposal needs to include resources from our cities, our businesses, our nonprofits. Some of those resources would be cash, some of those could be in kind, but how we put together programs that truly help our BIPOC community and help throughout the county. So not just centered in one city over another city. So I know I have calls with many of our city partners later this week, and we'll begin those discussions. And Tara, I'd love to have you also weigh in as a nonprofit that represents businesses and other entities of how we can pull that forward. And I think we want to make sure it's always the Pierce County way. And it's a unique partnership that really is, first in the country for what it looks like and how it can be done to add more businesses in our environment and to really raise the playing field for everyone in Pierce County. So if there aren't questions, Kelly, do you have a question, or is your hand still up from Hans?
Sorry, it's still up. I'll lower it.
Even though I love to answer any question you have. Then maybe if there's no questions there, segueing to the other topic, the county exec pulled together a vaccination task force, of which Tara is part of that task force. It's really targeted, a 6-week program working with key business and community leaders throughout the county. And the whole goal was the people that were asked to the table have spheres of influence. And so they would hear information from the weekly meetings and then figure out within their spheres of influences how they help us get Pierce County vaccinated. Because I think that really resolves a lot of issues, from hazard pay to our economy not being fully open, to our businesses needing extra help. So we just want to make sure we can get shots on arms and move ourselves forward to the next iteration of things without having to deal with all the pandemic pieces. So from that, and I want to give kudos to Tara, because wouldn't you know, she leaves the meeting. Next thing she does is she sees, oh, we were supposed to have an economic forecast on Cinco de Mayo, but you know what? That's not going to work because we've been rolled back. So instead, she quickly puts together with a local pharmacy a vaccine. And I think, Meredith, you guys were in on it at the city of Puyallup and others, and puts together a vaccination program. So the exec said, instead of making lemonade out of those lemons, she's making margaritas. And so Tara, I'm sure you can fill in extra pieces of that, but that's just a great example. We have the Tacoma Chamber and the EDB are pulling together 100 employers, and separately just having private sector conversations of what they can maybe do to incentivize their employees to get vaccinated. So not doing any kind of government mandate or having any intervening on that piece, but just to see what ideas and best practices are that we can help change the numbers there. Each week we do get to see where the numbers are and where we need help. And that's usually what the task force focuses on. So you'll see up on the screen, if we go to that next slide there, and Tara can get any of you these pieces. So the areas that we heard this week that we were having low vaccination uptake were in the Spanaway, South Tacoma, North Lakewood, and the rural areas. So a lot of our focus is trying to figure out then how do we put our energies to make sure we can get vaccinations there. Another thing that was pretty cool that happened from the meeting before, just sitting on the meeting, Aaron with Rainier said, hey, what if we do a vaccination event and we vaccinate everybody there, and maybe they get a soda pop or a hot dog or something. So they are actually they worked with emergency management and the health department, and on May 7th and 8th, they're going to be doing a J&J vaccination event. So we were pretty excited about that. We also had some PLU, Alan, who is the head of PLU, he stepped up right at the very beginning and said something kind of unique maybe for an employer, that if 80% of their employment base got vaccinated, they would all get an extra floating day off that they could choose. He also was one of the first, and now you've seen others, including UW and WSU, say that students have to be vaccinated to return to campus. So some of them are trying to figure out ways to incentivize to get people, you get to go to a little bigger party, or you get to play sports, trying to do different incentives to get people to get the vaccination so we can move forward. We did look at the numbers over the last week, and I believe we did about 40,000 vaccinations the previous week, which was pretty good. Some of our clinics, over 300, we're not getting 100% of the vaccinations used. So the goal was they even switched it to Tacoma Dome, that you don't even need an appointment, just show up. So they're trying to be as flexible as possible. And if Tara, if you could move to the next slide, it has, let's go down one more. It's really hard to see this, but this shows all the myriad of both public and private places that you can get a vaccine this week. And there are, if you blow up that little slide, there are a ton of them. So any employers on the line, if you need help in getting connected to any of those, I'm sure that both Meredith and Tara can help you on that, or you can contact me. But we just want to make sure that we have a healthy economy and we want to be open for business.
Great, thank you. Great summary. And yes, I will go ahead and mention for the group that's on right now, our event that we are partnering with the city of Puyallup and Kirk's Pharmacy is for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Cinco de Mayo at the Pioneer Pavilion. We'll have a food truck. We have lots of giveaways. We're trying to make it fun, but from 12 to 3, and there is a registration link that Lori can post in the chat. But hey, the great news is we just found out from the pharmacist at Kirk's that we are open to walk-ins as well. We learned from the task force meeting that worked. They definitely saw an uptick when somebody didn't need an appointment. But I do hope and encourage that any of you could pass along that information within your network. If you haven't, if you're on the edge, hey, tomorrow is going to be the great way to just get her done. All right. Well, thank you, Betty. And I do appreciate the shout out from the exec yesterday. That was very nice. And from you. Thank you. All right. Well, we've got just a few minutes here. I know we're a little bit over, but I would love to hear from Meredith Neal. We've got Jeff Wilson on the phone, and I see Ryan Windish and Deputy Mayor Hayden. So we'll circle around and grab some updates from the city.
Sure. So I'll try to go pretty quickly. State legislature, I just want to give a huge shout out to our fantastic 25th district legislators. You guys have been amazing through this, and I really appreciate you guys advocating for some projects in the capital budget for our city. So the 3 projects that we got funded in the state's capital budget, $1 million for exterior upgrades to the Puyallup Recreation Center, which are desperately needed. And so that's going to be really great to put further investment into our rec center. $330,000 for demolition and infrastructure upgrades for the city's Cornforth Campbell parking lot, which is downtown. And that's geared specifically towards attracting and supporting catalytic redevelopment. So we're pretty excited about that one. It's right across from Meeker Mansion. Time to tear the old building down and start putting that into a space where we can get it out for redevelopment. And the last one is $213,000 to build a playground at the Van Leer Park. So right next to Farm 12 there's going to be a playground coming in. So that's pretty exciting. On the city-owned parking lot, the AOB lot, we marketed that for sale to the local development community and regional development community. We received 4 proposals for residential development, condos and apartments, and city staff and our real estate brokers have reviewed the proposals and will be making a recommendation to city council at our next council meeting on May 18th. So, I mean, this is a huge step for the AOB lot, for redevelopment in our downtown core. It's something that the city has been working towards for almost 2 decades. So this is pretty exciting, and there'll definitely be more to come on that. Let's see, we have an outdoor dining program, which we just reshuffled our parklets as part of that. The city now has 7 city-built parklets that are allocated now throughout our downtown core. Cascades, the Forum, Mingle, Perry's, the Rose Restaurant, Wicked Pie Pizza, and Anthem Coffee. And those are going to be there now until October as part of our pandemic response. And that definitely was a team effort between development and permitting services, who did a day-and-a-half turnaround on the new permits for those, which was amazing. Our public works team for picking them up, fixing them up, and getting them back out. On the American Rescue Plan Act, we are receiving an estimated $9.2 million. So right now, city staff is working on a presentation that will go to City Council on May 18th, seeking initial direction from City Council on how the funds should be allocated. So we'll have more to come on that as well. And certainly, I think There's been a lot of talk about working with our partners across the county to figure out how we can really use these to do some amazing things in our region. And I guess I would close real quickly with sales tax revenue. So we've been watching our sales tax revenue because it's a great indicator of how things are doing in our community. And sales tax revenues continue to perform better than projected. Our March sales tax revenues, which reflect sales activity in January, were up 14% year over year. And our April sales tax revenue was up 7%. So we're exceeding the annual projected 8% decline in sales tax revenues right now, which is awesome. Car sales continue to be strong, as do retail sales. The area where we're lagging the most still is restaurants. Restaurants and hospitality continue to struggle with the pandemic restrictions. And with that, I will pass it over to Jeff.
Thank you, Meredith. I know we're short on time, so I'll just try and keep it on the high level issues that we're considering right now. Right now, the city has in place a impact fee deferral program that's about to expire at the end of June. So we'll be looking at bringing that forward for possible extension to that program while we're still working through the pandemic and the impacts it might be having on the building industry. So we'll be presenting that to the council for consideration before the expiration of the current one. We're also going to be presenting to the council and speaking with the council at their May 25th meeting, really kind of a primer for the 2024 mandatory update under GMA. There's some significant things we may have to consider as part of that process. There's a lot of discussions going back and forth, led by PSRC regarding population allocations that may have some significant impacts to what our plans might look like. So we want to start having that conversation early and briefing the council about that, so that if we can really maybe start that 2024 update early. So we can do a lot of time and have a lot of time for public outreach, public engagement, and taking a look at all the different options that may be available that we may be able to pursue as part of that plan. So we're going to kind of lay out an outline of that to the council on the 25th and get them into mindset and have that discussion so we can get the ball rolling down that avenue. Additionally, we're working on our housing action plan. There's been work before both the council and the planning commission just to kind of talk about some of the ideas. So from the input from both the planning commission and the city council, we're kind of now tweaking that a little bit, and a draft version of that will be presented out to the public for their comments and feedback on as part of the next round of the process of looking at our housing action plan. And we expect that final version to go out to the public for public comment will be occurring sometime later this month. So we'll be able to get in front of the public hands and start getting their feedback before we start the formal process of what that housing action plan may look like. We're also still have ongoing work related to our City View process. That's the new updated permit tracking system and processing system. Everything is still on time on that project. We know it'll help create a lot of efficiencies in terms of how we process permits and our timeliness, and help shorten some of the timeframes and hopefully make that process much cleaner. We're still expecting a go live on that this fall. We're moving into the final phases of that. They're starting to do some of the actual work on it. We'll be testing that over the next several months to get ready for that go live date. So we'll be looking to roll that out again, probably early fall of this year. And I'm not sure if it's on our website yet, but we're doing an update to our major projects list. And basically they've done one every year. And this is one kind of at the beginning of 2021. So it reflects those ongoing projects from past years that haven't come to completion, and those new projects that came in 2020, they expect to be breaking ground in 2021. So it's you can look for that on our website as well. That should be posted probably over the next couple of days as we just go through and make some final adjustments to some of the details in there to make sure it's accurate. And with that, I will be happy to pass it on.
Okay, I will go for Sumner first, and then I'll pass it over to Ryan. Our council has assembled our committee for the American Rescue Plan last night, so we can hit the ground running when it happens. We also passed a resolution authorizing the police department to use body cameras. So they're working hard on that. And my favorite is we passed the resolution with a joint affordable housing plan between Sumner and Bonnie Lake. It was very well written and thought out. Our staff did an incredible job. And with that, I will go on to Ryan.
Everybody hear me? All right. I have problems with that in my council meetings for some reason. So good morning, everyone. Real quick, we adopted the housing action plan last night. I shouldn't say we, but the council did. That was awesome. A couple other just business related things. I'm trying to keep this really short. We are entering into an interlocal agreement with the city of Bonnie Lake and a different interlocal agreement with East Pierce Fire and Rescue. The bottom line is that our fire permit review for fire alarms and sprinklers is going to come in-house, and we're hoping that that creates a lot more efficiency in our permit system. So we are excited about that change. We need to bring somebody on board in the next couple of months. And for our restaurant community, we circle back around, not unlike Puyallup, and we have 2 parklets to try to reallocate to different businesses, and reminded our restaurants that they have the option to do outdoor seating and tent structures and parking lots, anticipating a rollback. And we're also on the transit front. Pierce Transit is doing a van pool, van share outreach today at City Hall and the Sound Transit Station, trying to get our businesses to utilize that service to take employees from our train station up to the north end to the Manufacturing Industrial Center. So we'll see how that goes. Looking forward to Monday, thanks to Council Member Morell's office. They've organized a second round of conversations with key stakeholders about getting moving forward on conversation on getting transit into East Pierce County. So that will be happening on Monday. Excited to see where we go on that. And I'm just gonna cut it off there. Thank you.
Cut yourself off. Hey, well, thank you guys so much. Hey, we filled that hour just fine without Congresswoman Strickland. I am excited she has agreed to be there in June, but thank you. There is a lot of important dates and things going on in our community, and you guys are all a testament to that. So so nice to see you all. Have a great week. Again, send folks 12 to 3 tomorrow for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Nice to see you. Thanks, Chris, for being there.